check that out. Usually people that have got an ApoE of 4 tend to basically have high cholesterol. All it is, let me quickly just give you the overview. Through your body, there's a certain level of energy that needs to be circulating through your body at every single time, okay? And it can be in all sorts of lipoproteins. There are chylomicrons that leave the gut wall and then circulate through the body, giving all the cells, and then you get chylomicron remnants, the remainder that will go to including chylomicrons, go to adipose tissue, come out of adipose tissue, and go to the other cells and all that. At some point, those chylomicron remnants will go back and they will meet up with a HDL, and they'll say, "Hi, HDL, can I have the key to get inside the liver and get re-exported out as a VLDL?" And they basically will say, "Oh, you're a 4-4. You've got 4-4 genes. Oh, here's the key. Take it, go in." And it will go in, get re-exported out in a VLDL. And then it will shrink. As it goes, the VLDL will become an IDL and then an LDL. It shrinks. So the more VLDL that goes, more chylomicron remnants that go inside the actual liver and then get re-exported, the more LDL you'll have. The same amount of energy is in the system in terms of floating around to provide energy for the body. It's just in different vessels. Just because we can measure LDL doesn't mean it has any bearing. As long as it's not oxidized and it's native, irrelevant. Some people have an ApoE, and this has to do with sugar metabolism. So in the interglacial periods, there were 2 interglacial periods in the early parts of the Homo sapiens. In both those ones, one was not as warm as the current one, and we actually started consuming periodically a bit of sugar. The body, to prevent a lot of inflammation in the body, because when you actually put in the liver a lot of sugar and fat at the same time, what happens? You end up with fatty liver, you end up with insulin resistance, with Randle cycle activation. But if you're a tribal person that doesn't see any sugar because you're in a glacial period, which the majority of the period of our speciation existed, you're just producing glucose from gluconeogenic precursors of either protein or the glycerol backbone of triglycerides, glycerol. So, not a problem if those remnant chylomicrons get the key, the ApoE44 key from the actual HDL, and run inside and get re-exported out. So you end up with less chylomicron component and more VLDL LDL component. But if you've got a 3-3, it will actually say, you go there and the HDL will go, "Oh, here's a key. It's an ApoE33 key," but you'll have to wait because there are others trying to get through and there are less receptor sites. And so you'll have to wait, we're different genetics. You'll have to wait. You don't get, as a consequence, you will export out less of that, ending up. So it's a protective mechanism, the first one. Then you're in an interglacial period where you start eating some sugar. The body goes, "Oh, we have to adapt to this," because basically this can actually cause insulin resistance, can be unhealthy. So let's just slow down the uptake of chylomicron remnants. That's what happened. That was that genetic thing that happened around 200,000 years ago. So, which was an ApoE of 3-3. Then, in a other interglacial period that preceded this one, there was even more sharper, increase in temperature. Global warmers won't tell you that, but anyway, it did happen. And as a consequence, you shifted even further to an ApoE of 2-2. So you would actually have remnant chylomicrons waiting for hours potentially before they could get in. Those people have very low LDL because it doesn't go in. The fat from the chylomicrons to go through and actually get through the system. Got it? That's the difference. Now, you can have non-native LDL, VLDL, IDL, the whole bloody lot. So why do we focus on LDL? Because that was the only thing we could measure back then. And so we demonized it because at the time people were eating a lot of vegetable oils, oxidizing those LDL particles, because the longer the esterified cholesterol stays inside, so when it comes first through the gut and comes into the actual circulation, and then as a chylomicron remnant, because it takes about 10 minutes, then it goes to the liver as a chylomicron remnant. It will stay in circulation for longer if it doesn't have the right key. But if it has the right key, which is the 4,4, it'll go immediately into LDL. Now, if you've actually eaten seed oil, that initial 10 minutes won't oxidize too much. It won't actually cause too much reactivity. But by the time you actually get it out of the system and it goes into basically a VLDL and it shrinks down to an IDL, it's concentrated. And it's not the cholesterol, that's a waxy material. That's not oxidized. It's the fatty acids from the seed oils that are esterified. Those three fatty acids that are connected to the actual molecule of the cholesterol, esterified cholesterol as it's called. That's the problem, not the cholesterol. The fatty acids that are oxidized that are sitting there, that can actually create reactivity and cause damage to the internal part of the LDL, the membrane, and that can cause leakage of primary and secondary oxidation products, which then affects and damages the outer membrane of the LDL. Then that LDL no longer has glycocalyx pericellular matrix that can prevent the stickiness, because your endothelium has that, and so does the outer perimeter of your lipoprotein, so they don't stick to the walls. But if they basically can't bounce off and all that because they don't have a negative electric charge, because you've damaged that now with the oxidation, now you've got oxidized LDL with damaged surface that can stick and actually cause reactivity to the cell wall. That's the beginning of oxidative stress in the cell wall. Got it? So eat seed oils will cause that. Nothing to do with cholesterol. Who gives a shit what your genetics, whether you have the primitive genetics that the chimps have, 4,4 or 4, or a 4,3, slightly that, and it means you're taking out remnant cholesterol, remnant chylomicrons quickly, and then putting into circulation more VLDL, so you end up with more LDL. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter which boat it's in. If it's oxidized, it's a problem. It's non-native. If you don't eat seed oils, you're not going to get any oxidized LDL. It doesn't matter how high it is. Remember, most centenarians are very high in cholesterol, have very high, because people that have got a 4,4, a gene type, an ApoE of 4,4, actually also tend to be basically much better at responding to infections. That's why more centenarians tend to have higher cholesterol and tend to be more 4,4s. They live longer. So consider yourself lucky. The last thing you want to do is actually lower it. As long as you don't oxidize it by putting in seed oils, you're fine. You're good to go, Adrian. You should consider yourself lucky, because most centenarians are really running those sort of genes. They're either, it's only crackpots that actually have a different opinion. It's crazy, the sort of stuff that we believe. Believe me, it's just madness. Ox-LDL is a problem, not native. That our genes have been producing for a very, very long time, as Gary points out there quite clearly.